This is Fred at Quality One Engravers with Gabe, and we're going to show you what you're going to have to do to your connector that's coming from your table to the new controller. So existing is going to be this connector, and once you take the screws off of it, it'll look like the connector that's over here. You won't be utilizing any of those parts, so basically just completely move them aside, all the screws. We'd appreciate, you're going to be sending some stuff back. If you sent that back, it'd be great. So what we're going to do is we're going to be cutting individual wires one at a time from the Hirose 24 pin and putting them in the amp 24 pin. Now the Hirose is only good for up to 5 amps, whereas the amp connector is up to 18 amps. So it's a much better connector and a much better connection. So let's go over the parts that you're going to have. You're going to have a set of dikes. You're going to have wire strippers, extraction tool, and then you'll have several of the female pins. And then you'll have the actual connector, which is actually 5 parts. There's a rear shell, there's the main connector, and then there's a clamp and 2 screws that hold the clamp. So basically, let's start with the very first step. You're going to go to the Hirose connector. You're going to identify where pin number 1 is. And usually we just put a mark up there, and you'll see the numbers run 1 through 9 down the right side there. So go ahead and turn the connector around, Gabe, and go ahead and cut off pin number 1. You can leave a little bit of wire there so you can see the color wire that you just cut off. And then you're going to pull that wire, and then you're going to, it's usually nice to have something weighted on the wire that you're using, on the harness that you've got. So now you've got pin number 1. Now what you need to do is slide it over the wire, and also you're going to have some shrink tubing, 2 layers of shrink tubing here you're going to put on. And now you're going to strip it a minimum of, it's an 18 gauge wire, so you put it in the 18 slot and have it be, and this is like about the minimum that you'd want to go. This is right about 1/8 of an inch. Go ahead and strip it just a tiny bit more again. Okay, and now you're going to crimp it. You have the crimp and you can practice on a wire. We'll send some wire that you can practice on. So you're going to put it in the 18 slot. You're going to insert the wire and crimp down, and you should see the wire fully crimped and a little bit of crimp on the insulation. And then go ahead and tug on it. You shouldn't be able to pull that connector apart. So now you're going to locate pin number 1, and all you do is just slide it in. Sometimes you need a small screwdriver. Right. So sometimes to get it to really seat, you have to push it in. So now, if for some reason you have to redo the wire, maybe you didn't feel comfortable with pushing it in, or you ruined it when you smashed it, now just go ahead and insert the exertion tool, push it all the way down, and just pop it, and it comes right out. So that's still usable. So let's do one more, Gabe. Go ahead and insert that in pin number 1. And go ahead and cut pin number 2. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to go through the shell, unscrew both pieces of shrink tubing. Strip it. Open up the and again, look at your work. And then slide that into pin number 2. Now there may be an instance that there may not be a wire in every single cavity. So if you skip a cavity, if there is no wire, obviously skip that, but it's all going to be pin to pin. And then once you're done, so you'll have now up to 24 wires in here. And now all of them will be routed through here. And this connector will no longer be here, so you'll have nothing but pins, wires going through this shell. So then you would move the shrink tubing to the rear. Why don't you do it again? So again, remember, this would have all the wires hooked up. And then you screw the back shell on. And then you're going to insert the shrink tubing, and if you have a heat gun, you can heat this up, or you can just leave it intact. And then you're going to use the back shell and the screws to crimp it down. And that's what you're going to end up with. If you don't use both pieces of shrink tubing and you don't have something to shrink it down, actually what we'll probably do is give you one piece of shrink. This is what it should end up like if you have a heat gun to heat up the shrink. But anything to keep this from biting into the wiring is good. If you have any questions, make sure you give us a call and we'll talk you through any of it. Okay? Thanks.